Okay, let's do 3 ohms to begin. You can unmute if you like. Right. Welcome. Oh, so let's go around and have everybody introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about yourself. Okay, you want to begin, Anne?
So, hey, glad to be here. A friend sent me this link. I'm a semi-retired social worker in Baton Rouge, just interested in all kinds of modalities that can help us become all that we want to be.
Cool. What type of worker were you?
I'm a social worker.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, then Sunny, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a Reiki master who's also very interested in sound. I was a semi-professional jazz singer for many years, and so I work with sound for my own healing, and I'm interested in bringing it more into my Reiki. And sorry, I have my camera off, but I'm eating lunch, so.
Cool, cool, great. Okay, okay, Greg, tell us about yourself. Where are you from?
Hi, David. Hi, everyone. My name's Greg. I'm from Australia, but I live in Portugal. I messaged you, David, a few days ago. I play the didgeridoo, the Australian Aboriginal instrument. I've been using it for sound healing for about 17 years. And so I just wanted to come on and just connect and just join in with sound and other healers and just, join in the conversation, really.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, Katja.
Hi. So I'm located in Germany, and I only learned about this group of you yesterday. So I received an email with the invitation link to the Zoom and had a look at your website, and it popped in at the time that I'm starting new research projects in the hospital that I work in. And I was thinking about looking at cells and cell culture and how we can influence them with sounds in a positive way. So specifically bone healing and also patients with SMA. So I thought maybe I can connect and learn something that's
Cool, great.
going to be useful.
Welcome. Hi, Ella. Tell us
Hi,
about
David.
yourself. Hey,
How are you?
good. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I finished the certificate program in October of last year, and I have started my practice, and it's been really lovely. I love working with clients and doing events and stuff. But I am really interested in working more in like I guess you would say, clinical setting as well, in hospitals or addiction centers, anything like that. So I saw this in my email, and I got really excited to come and learn more. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, Rex, tell us about yourself.
I'm developing my program, preparing to publish what I call yoga for music, voice, dance, and other spiritual expression. Whatever it is that the big God Spirit thing wants to come and down and do through us, we want to have the basic chops available. So I play bowls and gongs, such for ceremonies and celebrations, djembes and drum circles. And I'm very interested in the growth of the brain stimulated by playing.
Excellent. Cool. Okay, Kirk, tell us about yourself.
Hey everybody, hey David. My name is Kirk Jones, and I am a sound practitioner. I do meditations and one-on-one sessions, and I teach mostly bronze singing bowls, but also crystal and tuning forks and gongs. And yeah, so I've been speaking with my local hospital and trying to figure out, how to get the profession more into the mainstream. And I know a lot of other people are concerned about the same thing. And I found out about this about a year ago, and excited to be on some of these calls. And I do have a little bit of research for pain that I've been doing over the last 2.5 years, 3 years, for pain, stress, anxiety, as well as the effects on the physical body, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies. So that's been really fascinating. And
With just general instruments?
that's specifically with bronze bowls, and it's specifically
Tibetan bowls.
during trainings. Yes.
Cool. Where are you located?
Currently, I'm in northern Vermont.
Oh, okay, cool. Welcome. Okay, Claudia Sunshine.
Oh, hello, everyone.
Tell us about yourself.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm so glad to be here with all you kindred spirits. I have been interested in sound and visuals and all the input through our senses that can heal us. But specifically, for whatever reason, I've been drawn to sound and music as healing. And I've gone through a lot of things in my life. I've been dealing with a lot of health issues, and I can be a part of the proof that this stuff works. This is real medicine. For example, and I'm going to be very short, I use the voice with the singing bowls to move myself from despair, from pain, to shift my mind. And I just go into this light that just goes right through me when I match certain tones. And then I see dissonances and I work through them. I bend through them. I love what you talk about when there's flow and balance and overactivation and the things we need to be careful when we work with other people. I am a retired lymphatics and oncology massage therapist, and I would love to be involved in research on how sound affects tissues, blood flow, and lymphatics, and helps take care of pain. So I would love to be involved, and I'm happy to be here. I just want to say I appreciate you all and what everyone's doing. This is amazing. I've been interested for decades. Thank you.
Excellent. Welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Lauren, tell us about yourself.
Hello, I'm Lauren, and I'm in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. And I believe, Greg, I either was introduced to you by Dr. Robert Gilbert or Karim or Pei, somehow associated with biogeometry. So I was following you for a long time, and I really appreciate your work. I've attended a few of these, and I'm an electrical engineer, so I understand the need for documentation. So what you do is incredible, and I know it's needed. So me right now, I've done a long career in standard mainstream electrical engineering. And as my career progressed, I took the road of the most non-intrusive methods of sound. So I'm getting certified in the cymatic by Mandara. And then I use on myself frequency-specific microcurrent. So I also am trying to, what could you say, enable, as you are, and your website and your work. If anyone asks me, where can they find info? Your work is amazing. So now I feel I'm in a point in my career where, to me personally, there's no more proving it. It's that each individual has to do it themselves. So singing and music is the best. And if they need intellectual what would you call it? Justification. I'll send them to you, your website. So thank you for all the work you do. It's just unbelievable. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. So let me tell you a bit about myself, although it would take too long to go into everything we're doing. So let me tell you about what we're doing with the Medical Sound Association here. The original goal was to bring sound into the medical side instead of the integrative side, right? So what we're looking at is exactly how sound works in the body, whether it's frequencies, bunch of frequencies, which are timbres, musical intervals, relationships between the parts of the body, or the flow through each of the 11 systems, which is actually a song, right? And a lot of people in the field, whether it's sound or electromagnetics or quantum or infrared, whatever, very few are looking at the flow, which is really, I think, the most important part, although it's critical to look at all 4 levels in the body. I think of the cells as frequencies. A bunch of cells make up an organ, which are a timbre. The relationship between the organs is musical intervals, but the flow through each of the systems, smooth flow, is the definition of health. Smooth flow without blockages is what health is, right? And a lot of people don't look at the overall system, not to mention the emotional system in relation to the physical, the mental body and brain and brainwave states in relation to the physical and emotional, much less the spiritual realm and how that all comes in. But the focus here is to get this into hospitals. So we have to leave out the spiritual realm, although we sneak it in. We'll sneak it in. Might even bring in a few Hathors, right? But we're going to, but the whole goal is to change with this association. The whole goal is to change the medical system, right? Now, I've been looking at different avenues to get into and change the medical system in detail. And also I work with Jeffrey Thompson, whose whole goal has been exactly this as well. So we just had a big discussion recently, just a couple of days ago. So, to get into the medical system is normally the way to do it is through getting FDA approval, right? And coming up with technologies or techniques that will actually be approved, and then you get it in, and ultimately we will do that, right? But in the meantime, what we're looking at is getting it in for doctors and nurses and for the staff, right? So they can, because then we don't have to have FDA approval. We can get it in at least for relaxation for them, and we're making some headway there. We're actually just got a contract with the largest dementia company in Northern California, right? I mean, we've got a very detailed protocol now for them. But also getting it into the integrative therapy departments, right? So that's really where we've kind of diverted to as a interim goal on the way to getting it into the medical side. Now, the medical side, what we're going to have to figure out is really precisely how the body works based on music. We're not talking about listening to music. We're not talking about playing instruments or sound healing instruments in the room. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about actually finding the actual frequency of every cell, every organ, the song through each of the 11 systems. And now I'm working with John Stewart Reed. He's been working with a device called the Raman spectroscopy that will show the harmonic content of a cell scientifically in real time. But it's in vitro, it's not in the body. So we need to, so Jeffrey Thompson actually has a whole range of devices that would be like around 50 million to get it all, to be able to track exactly all the different frequencies in the body. But the problem is they're different from person to person, right? But they're different, but there's a range of frequencies, right? So, every organ's going to have a range of frequencies for a human. But it gets very complex because there's many levels at which you can look at frequency. You can look at the whole organ. I was a physics major at UC Berkeley, and there's a very specific mathematical formula for an entire thing. It's based on the thickness, tension, if there's any tension, like a string, density, and size. And they're mostly square root relationships. So you could actually find the frequency not only of the overall organ, but of the materials. And then at the cellular level, then at the molecular level. So there's all these different levels to find the frequencies. But we should have a chart that shows the frequency range for a human at each one of those levels for every part of the body, right? And if you guys been around and looked at the charts, no one agrees with anybody on anything, because first of all, they're not even defining what they're measuring. I mean, it's kind of wackadoodle. I mean, it's like, and half of the people are actually using psychics, right? Which is not bad. I mean, psychics can give you information that you could use to study, right? That could be a good little extra shortcut, right? So that's where we're headed, is to not only map all the frequencies of the body, the ranges, but also the songs going through each of the 11 systems. So we can actually find the rhythm based on EKG and EEG of every one of the 11 systems, because all the systems are going to be in relation to the heart, brain, and breath when you're in the zone, right? And it's not going to be weird. It's not going to be a weird rhythm. Maybe, a musical interval of 3 to 2, right? But probably octaves, which is double or unison for each of the 11 systems. So the rhythm is going to be pretty easy to find. But then we can measure each of the cells within that and find the nodes within the system, and then map out the melody, and then use frequencies with needles, infrared light, microcurrents on the body, and even scalar waves, and run that river of flow through each of the 11 systems in the body to heal everything you have going on. Tune precisely to that person. Tune precisely to that person, right? That's where we're headed. Yeah. So I'm not really interested in proving anything that we're using. That's not my main goal. We probably will do that as we go. My whole interest is really exploratory research to figure out how the body works at every level, based on frequencies, combinations of frequencies, relationships of frequencies, and musical flows, right? How it works at every level. That's the Holy Grail, right? Once we have that, holy moly. I mean, it's like there's so much research that's being done that, I mean, God bless him, Jeffrey Stewart, John Stewart Reed's doing like really cool research. But how many people are you going to help by just knowing, what frequency creates more blood intake? I mean, what rhythm? I mean, he doesn't even have it figured out yet. I mean, if you could figure out precisely what rhythms and frequencies for each person create more blood, more oxygen into the blood, that's cool. I mean, if we're going to do research, even if we have all unlimited funding, which we have coming in, even if we have unlimited funding, let's make the research help millions of people. And figuring out how it all works is going to help millions of people, maybe not even in our lifetime, but it's going to really change the whole medical system dramatically. So that's what we're really interested in, is actually figuring it all out and doing research to prove conceptual frameworks that we feel are going on. So I'm talking about mapping exactly how to heal every disease in the world with vibration, right? I mean, you can get people in the zone playing bowls, playing, all types of things, doing voice, running source energy, which is the best, by far the best, right? But that's only going to get us so far, right? It's going to get into the integrative therapy departments, really, and it's cool. I'm not throwing integrative therapy out. In fact, that's the whole focus today is integrative therapy. But ultimately, to figure out precisely how everything works based on vibration, there is nothing more basic than vibration. And when we understand that in the body, I mean, you should be going into a hospital and they say, "Oh, you got a physical issue? Let's go into the emotional wing and figure out what emotion is behind this and release it with sound and change those negative beliefs and turn them around and make the sound of that." And go into the mental wing and do brainwave entrainment to get your brain back to a stable, consistent vibration at delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma. And go into the spiritual wing. Oh, you're not spiritual? Go into the garden and let's look at the flow systems in nature. Right? Oh, and then we'll come back and use sound on your actual physical issue. That's the way hospitals should be. It's hard to imagine. Hard to imagine that. It used to be hard to imagine sound in hospitals. I remember 10 years ago doing meditation going, visualize sound in hospitals, right? It will happen one day. And now it's happening, right? Sounds in the integrative therapy departments everywhere. I mean, it's really happening, and there's an opening. So imagining, it's so funny because I'm still visualizing it, but it's still hard to imagine emotional and mental and even spiritual wings, right, in hospitals where they see how those all four levels work together, right? Now it's interesting. One of the main avenues that I've been thinking so I don't die is, first of all, having over 600 people in the Medical Sound Association. That makes it a little easier, right? Or less harder for them to take anybody out, right? But I'm not worried about that anyway. I'm protected around here. But the other way is to work with hospitals that have insurance companies like Kaiser, because they're looking at reducing costs, right? And they're much more open. But then I just talked with Jeffrey Thompson, who's been working on getting sound into hospitals for his whole life. He's a little jaded now because he's gotten turned down, because he's a very serious doctor, right? And he's gotten turned down so many times, because even got turned down because he was doing brainwave entrainment. And he says the U.S. is still really hard. I mean, the doctors have their turf, right? But he told me something really important. He said, Europe and Asia, it's not that way. They're way more open. So the plan is, as we move through, to really work through Asia and Europe, get it in the hospitals, and then go to the doctors in the U.S. What's your problem? What's your problem? Look how effective it is, right? I mean, there's one thing that's happening right now that's really cool. I just met a guy that's introducing focused MRI, which is simply ultrasound that will destroy cancer cells in 15 minutes and you go home cancer-free. No side effects. And they're selling them to hospitals now. Right? I mean, we're talking that there will be no more radiation and no more chemotherapy in 10 years. Right? I mean, this is huge, really getting specific frequencies in to break up cells. But then, this is where I see the main change. Using a device like that to resonate every single cell, every single part of the body into its healthy state. Whether it's sound, ultrasound, electromagnetics, and then that's the new medicine, right? And again, I'm really inspired. Like, so this guy called me up like a few years ago and said, my guides told me to call Dave Gibson. I love San Francisco, right? And it's like, I said, well, what do they want, right? And he said, well, they say you're bringing sound into the medical field, and it's going to be embedded in the medical field within 10 years. This was 3 years ago. And then I talked to my friend who's a very cool psychic, and she said, yeah, it'll be embedded in 10 years, but it'll be 20 years before it's completely accepted. And I thought, 20 years and our whole medical system is completely transformed? That's no time at all. That's my lifetime, right? This is massive. This is huge, right? Yeah. There's so many. I mean, if you look at technologies, but the whole thing is, let's figure out exactly what's going on. Yeah. I mean, why is, the biomat working on the cancer cells? Why is this, I mean, what exactly is going on? Why are different frequencies doing what they're doing, right? So we can show it and prove it after we figure it all out. Right? So that's my overview. Any thoughts or questions before we jump in to the details here?
So you said that you have funding coming in. Are there there must be specific projects that you have grants for?
No, these are philanthropists that actually know what I'm doing, and through a whole group, there's actually about 8 different sources, and they're funding anything we want to do because they know that we're all about helping as many people on the planet as possible.
Wow.
So there's no definition. We do have a meeting that's going to be coming up with Elon Musk, and he'll be a little more specific. But all these other philanthropists it's just they're like, okay, how can we feed and heal the planet, right? And so it's like all the projects we're doing are like, it's a done deal. It's really, really happening now. So we're looking at setting up a major research foundation to really start exploring everything, right?
Yeah. I have a comment. I love what you say, and it's consistent with how I met you and what Dr. Robert Gilbert of the biogeometry described when he said that the key to electromagnetism was finished with radar in the 40s, which allowed the key and functionality of how electromagnetic waves work. The key to chemistry and the physical atoms was the imperial chart, and that was finished, sometime in the same realm. And what's missing, and when that was done, that made modern technology possible, because then you have the keys of functionality, how everything works, and you build things. So what was missing is the key to subtle energy. In other words, right? So what I wanted to introduce to you, and that's why I fell in love with Gilbert and I found you, because I thought this is the big picture. So what I just wanted to introduce, when Gilbert says that, my imagination, I love your comments on this, is that if you do it in sound, then someone can also, the sound is just a harmonic of all the other frequency keys, right? So to me, you're building the missing key.
Right. That hierarchy of vibration, it's so interesting because people talk about frequency all the time and they don't talk about flow, right? I mean, Robert, I actually took a whole group of people to Egypt and we actually did a workshop at Ibrahim Karim's house. He did a whole workshop on biogeometry. And, and I know people that are using biogeometry to create some unbelievable stuff. My friend Lumen in Mount Shasta has like embedding sacred geometry energies into his music. He's a professional recording engineer, and it's like when he played it, it was like, oh my God, what is going on? There's angels in the room, right? And it's incredible, yeah. So I mean, the potential here is really huge. I just really want to ground it in exactly the physics of what's going on, right? And also look at all levels of vibration. I mean, it's like Anthony Holland. He's going, okay, we can destroy cancer cells, 40% of the time with 2 frequencies. Well, what if we map all 100 or 1,000 frequencies in that cell and turn up the volume? We can explode it 100% of the time instead of just 2 frequencies. Now we're using all the frequencies. And what about that flow system that's in the actual system of the body that cell is within? Maybe it's the flow system has got a blockage that cell could be the blockage, but maybe it's the flow system that's the problem instead of focusing on the cancer, right? So, or maybe it's emotional blockage. I mean, it's really zooming out and working at all levels, not only physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, but also at all levels of vibration, sound, electromagnetics, infrared light, and even quantum and scalar waves, right? And as I say, the more ways you lead a horse to water, the more chances it'll drink.
So I have one more comment that really impacted me a lot, and I'd like to memorize it. When you came on and you described flow, yeah, it just clicked. I think you're really onto something, because when you talk about these keys, in order to approach it, you have to make it static in time and somewhat. And I'm sure in Maxwell's equations, they dumped a lot of the scalar stuff just to make it operational. So you bring up an extremely important point that flow may actually integrate them, and they change, and it's very important.
Yeah, the tricky part is when you start looking at flow systems of music, it's really complex. I mean, I wrote the #1 selling books in audio recording on mixing and producing, and the #1 selling book in sound healing, right? And so I've mapped out all the parameters of music in detail, so you can start looking at like how flow systems work within music. The basic concept, and many spiritual traditions and leaders have talked about this, the basic concept is that the whole universe is music. Not only the body, but all of nature. I mean, a healthy flow system on the planet is a healthy ecosystem is a system that all the parts are flowing and interacting without blockages, without toxins, without pollution, right? So it's really the basis of the whole universe is flow systems, right? As my friend said, what about the quantum field where there's no time? Right? Well, in the quantum field, you are in the middle of the flow. You're in the moment of the flow. Okay, so that's the overview, but we got work to do here. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to go through sound for digestion, sound for blood clots, and then I'm going to show you the beginning of the new website, Sound for Hospitals, which is really sound for integrative therapy departments. Right. And because the whole goal is to really set up a whole system for seeding integrative therapy departments, and actually in whatever city people are in, then they can go, we can say, hey, we've now got this integrated therapy department open to sound. Anybody in that city, come around and let's go into the hospital, right? They're open now. And we got a little training system. We're not going to, actually just a little test you have to do on safety guidelines to get in, right? Just so you don't hurt anybody. Something real simple, right? That's what we're looking at to make it so that hospitals are more open to completely bringing people in, right? That's the goal. So first of all, let's talk about digestion. So I did a little research, not a lot, right? And just let me give you the overview of what we do here. So what we have is we've now got treatment plans for over 20 issues here. Grief, anxiety, depression, these are each like 20 pages each, right? Addiction, dementia, autism, pain, cancer, schizophrenia, sleep, anger, thyroid, traumatic brain injuries, adrenals, and heart conditions, right? And if you look at any one of these, you'll see that we've got, all this information in detail in a Google Doc, right? In detail. But the layout of each one of them is this. We first go through the medical details, information about the issue, causes, current medical treatments, and differences in the way it would be approached for different types of people, right? And that's important to really inform the way we're actually going to do the sound treatment, right? The conceptual framework is really the most important part of all. What's the approach? I mean, there's a million ways you can do sound, right? But what's the approach? Which is going to, for example, it's going to be quite different for anxiety because it's going to be about calming. Whereas for depression, it's going to ultimately be about activating, right? It's a completely different approach for different issues, right? And so and that's the most important part. And that's what I really want to focus on today. Safety guidelines, really important if we're going to get this into hospitals. You got to have, we can't hurt people. And you can hurt people with sound. You can totally hurt people. You could really throw someone off with a gong if somebody's having a panic attack, right? Or if somebody's really sensitive, they can't handle, like even a Tibetan bowl can be too much, right? Or a crystal bowl. Crystal bowls are like too much, can be too much for people that are really sensitive. You got to be careful, right? And then we have intake questions, and then the actual sound treatments. Treatments other than sound would throw in a little bit, and then homework for the patient once they go home. All right. So as we go through this, I want to make sure we're going to focus on each one of these one at a time. So let's not jump around. As we're talking about the medical details, don't say, oh, well, we could do, this with sound. All right, well, let's finish the medical details and wait until we get down to the sound part, right? So we're going to do each section step by step and try not to jump around. So that way it'll be a little more organized. Okay. So let me show you what I put together for digestion. Now, it's interesting because when I looked at the medical stuff on digestion, they don't mention anything about functional medicine and actually, all the probiotics and prebiotics and everything. I mean, I was in the hospital last year for kidney stones, right? And they put me on antibiotics, which wiped out everything in my gut. And for the next 9 months, my digestion was a complete mess. And I went through functional medicine and got blood tests and all types of poop tests and everything, and they put me on a range of vitamins and probiotics, and it completely transformed my digestion, so it's perfect now. right? Like 20 years ago, my digestion was a mess for 20 years. And I did the same thing. I did functional medicine. It just so happened my girlfriend, actually at the time, actually studied functional medicine, so I was her guinea pig. That was really cool. And it turned out I had H. pylori. And I had a gene off in my liver, which meant my liver was only working 50% functioning my whole life. No wonder I've always been a cheap date when it comes to alcohol, right? I mean, it's like, and so I'm now taking vitamins for my liver, and I got rid of the H. pylori, and it changed my life dramatically. I had severe adrenal fatigue. I could barely make it through the day, and now it's completely gone. And none of that's in here if you look up any of the medical stuff, right? So, you know, when I look at, whenever anybody calls, and it's quite often, and they say, I've got a digestive problem, what do you have with sound that could help? You know, well, I think of two levels. There's a lot of digestive problems that happen because people are stressed out. Just stressed out. I've got my best friend, and she has digestive problems, and I know that's what it is. She knows it too. It's just she's stressed out, right? She gets emotional. I mean, it's her emotional body that's causing it, right? And that's easy. Then we do sound. Do what we do. We play consistent, stable vibrations, which is vowels, crystal bowls, Tibetan bowls, you know, didgeridoo, everything we do, every sound healing instrument we do, and you get people mellowed out. And often it will go away because there's no more stress. They're back to a place of peace. That's huge. And that's really huge. But often digestive problems are bugs. If you got bugs, or as they found when they did my test just like 9 months ago, she said, I've got no bad bugs, but I have 0 out of the dozen bugs, good bugs you're supposed to have. I had 0 good bugs. Right? So when it comes to bugs, I don't have a clue what to do with sound. Get them mellow. I mean, peace is always the way to go. Sometimes you get people into a place of peace, and the bugs, you know, your system overcomes it with your immune system, right? But, you know, ultimately what we need is the frequency that creates each probiotic. The frequency that will overcome a you know, H. pylori or any what's the bugs that latch on to you? The ones that just set up housekeeping. I can't think of the name of it.
Or like worms or parasites.
I'm sorry?
Like worms or parasites.
Yeah, worms or I'm blanking on the name. It's like the other bugs that are, there's actually, you know, you can take stuff to get rid of these other bugs too. So anyway, what's that?
Candida?
No, well, Candida's good, yeah. But you know, it's like bugs that actually just set up housekeeping and live off you. Anyway, so that it's going to take parasites. That's what I was trying to remember. Some reason I could never remember that word. Parasites. So if we could find the frequency that would break up a parasite, right, or get rid of Candida, and you know, that's really the deal. But you know, I've got a CD, which you know, we've got all the frequencies from Peter Guy Manners that are used in the cymotherapy. I mean, but we charge like, I mean, we sell the CDs for $30 and then have a device for like $500 instead of $10,000, right? So we've got like all these different CDs for or songs for digestion. Let me show you some of them. Let's see, sharing screen. But they're not that specific, right? So let's see, Sima digestion. I mean, we got it for heart, stomach, heartburn, indigestion, gastritis, gastric ulcer, but that's kind of about all we have, right? And if you look at the frequencies from Peter Guy Manners, he's got a little more than this, but not, there's nothing for parasites. There's nothing for candida. I mean, this is what we really need. I mean, and the gut is so receptive to sound, right? I don't know about bugs though, right? Any thoughts about this?
I immediately thought of it just kind of made me think of if you had. So my mom, I'm just going to use a real life example. My mom had a worm that was wreaking havoc on her life for like a significant amount of time, and she didn't know that that's what it was. At the time, she really loved eating pumpkin seeds, and she ate a lot of them. Oh yeah, yeah.
I'd say that because I just started eating a bunch of pumpkin seeds in the last month.
Yep. So I think her body was craving it because they naturally do like really huge detoxing, and it literally like killed. She was having like gallbladder attacks because this huge worm sitting in there was like dying from all the pumpkin seeds she was eating. And so I think it made me think of like kind of, I don't know what type of like homeopathic sort of, but like if you could find the frequency of like the pumpkin seed.
That's perfect. That's excellent. I mean, the other avenue to go is find the frequency of even the pharmaceutical or the drugs that they would give for worms, right? And actually start mapping it out that way, right? I mean, there's always two ways to go. You can focus on what's wrong and try and break it up, or you can focus on what's right and resonate the right more into harmony. Excellent. Frequency of pumpkin seeds. I love it. It's perfect.
Something that I usually do with my clients and people that I work with is bringing in. I'm not sure if you've heard of this guy. He created this. It's called German New Medicine, and so it looks at like root causes of trauma that created the imbalance in the body in the first place. So, for example, digestive typically is like not being able to digest or assimilate a morsel of information, a conflict.
So working at the emotional level.
Yeah, so and then it's both. So then it's using the frequency, but then it's also looking at what is the root cause of this and when did it first? And then it's about helping the people to understand, what patterns in their life are they keep on recreating, because the symptoms come up when the body is going into the healing stage. The symptoms don't come up when we're in the stress stage. They come into effect when we're into the once we've hit the once we've resolved it, we then get the symptoms. So I often incorporate that. So you've got the frequency, but then you've also got the emotional trauma side of it.
Nice. So it's interesting because I know a lot of medical intuitives, and just about all of them say that more than 80% of issues are emotionally based, right? Some say 100%, right? That the physical issues wouldn't even get to you if there weren't some emotional opening. So this is the way I map it out. Let me show you as far as how we deal with it. The conceptual framework, this is from a different issue, so I'll refine it after we finish our meeting and post it. But you can always get people to a place of peace, right? I mean, that's what we do. Peace is the goal of all sound healing. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, peace is what heals, right? There's no two ways about it. It's good science that your immune system works better, your organs work better when at peace. And that's, there's a million ways we do that, right? We can have them play and make sounds themselves. We can also play music. We can play instruments. We can play, uh, I mean, just the full range of what we do with sound healing, and figure out what music gets them blissed out. And then there's the whole emotional world. We can have them express emotions with sound. We have a whole technique we teach at our college of being able to use the voice to like, we got 10 different techniques to release stuck emotions and focus on what the trauma or whatever is going on, right, in the body. And then you can also, the whole process is a matter of getting them into a place of peace with sound, and then exploring what the emotional issues are, where the blockages are, and so we've talked about that in detail in like other sections, like for anxiety or depression or trauma, right? That we go into those in way more detail there, where you can actually focus on, get them in the zone, and first with sound, then start doing the weeding and figuring out what actually, where is the blockage, what trauma has happened in their system. The other is just getting them in their body. I mean, you can put Tibetan bowls on the body's cool, big hand drum, right? Sound tables, sound lounges, close to a gong, where they're physically feeling the sound in their body. Tuning forks on the body. This is huge, right? So getting them in their body with vibration, transforming. Then there's the brainwave entrainment, which is really good for overcoming a lot of emotional issues, where we actually find the actual frequency of the person, of their metabolism. We've been doing it for about 10 years now, where we play each of the 12 notes and find which one makes them the most peaceful, and then give them brainwave CDs in delta, theta, alpha, and beta, and that can help overcome emotional issues, especially things like anxiety. And then we have a whole class on techniques for overcoming and dealing with challenges and conflicts, for creating a stable, consistent vibration so that challenge or conflict doesn't throw you off into chaos, which can cause all types of stress and tension and disease ultimately. And then the whole thing of, let's just get you connected to source. Let's just bring in, source energy. Source knows the best way to deal with it, and often miracles happen, right? So those are kind of the general ways to do it. But then you can actually start finding, the frequency of, see, am I sharing my screen? Maybe I'm not sharing. Oh, I'm not even sharing my screen, am I? You're not seeing anything I'm seeing. Okay, sorry. Let me show you what I just was writing. Okay, here we go. So we got the conceptual framework is peace, have them play and make sounds, explore what music works, express emotions with sound, get them in their body, brainwave entrainment, holding frequency to deal with challenges and conflicts, and connection to spirit. And then here would be like finding the frequency of the gut when healthy, or finding the frequency of remedies to break up bugs. And that could take some research, right? And that would be well worthwhile, right? Right. So that's kind of the overview of ideas. Any other ideas here for the conceptual framework? Because you can get very specific in each one of these areas, right? I mean, if this is just sound healing, this whole section. I mean, it's what people do in a million different ways, getting people to peace. Basically, there's the emotional side. Let's see, I'll put in here weeding. Let's see, I have a different word for it, but weeding once in the zone, leading emotions, or creating alternative behaviors?
That's kind of, I ended up getting the Zyto e-box program, and that's what I've been working with a lot with clients. And
Cool.
it's really incredible reframing of perceptions using that frequency input.
Oh, it changed my whole perception of my father.
Yeah.
I mean, after an hour and a half, I went from my whole life thinking my father was just a jerk to thinking he was just a spirit trying to make it like us all. It transformed my whole relationship with my father. Right? Yeah, there's so many devices. There's Evox. There's like all these. We've got the nutrienergetics. There's the QXCI that actually send electronic signals through the body and ping different organs and give you a 30-page medical readout. I mean, the potential there is like really, really huge. And then to add sound into it, because the Evox actually adds in the voice analysis at the same time. Right? Yeah, it's interesting. But even those are still doing frequencies. They're still doing combinations of frequencies. They're not doing flows, right, as much. Although they do send information out through scalar waves, which is really cool. It's really cool. So, and they resonate your system into into focusing on the issue. I just got a rodin coil, RODIN. Right, it's a vortex math coil. Actually, let me show you. It's like, oh, it's a little intense. Right. Okay. We're now playing my music on the sound table through the rodin coil. This is what it looks like. Okay, it looks kind of like this one right here. Vortex math. You pay 5,000 watts through it. It creates a scalar wave field that goes for 30 miles. Holy moly! I got blown out the first time because I got a fragile system. It's like, so I turned the volume down, and now I can actually handle it. It's like, oh my God, I've had a lot of people like have to sit down for a few hours because they're in the fifth dimension, and it's like, you gotta come back, right? But totally cool for creating scalar waves, right? Okay. So let's see what people have been putting in the chat. Yeah. Someone's talking about. I mean, the main thing here. I mean, about the collective. It's like really, it's interesting because I've started to synchronize with people that want to actually sell their technologies and, get this into places. And it's like, okay, how much are you wanting to help people versus sell your own stuff, right? Well, it's cool. We got to make a living, and it's cool. But the focus here is how many people can we help. So everything from these meetings is shared with everybody. It's not, and it's really because if we can figure out how to heal every disease in the world, it could wipe out all medical systems financially. Thank God. We may be starving, but we're all healed. Right? Until the whole money system comes down and nobody's starving, everybody's sharing. That's where it's headed, right? But, really the deal is how many people can we heal, right? How many people, and it's, I mean, as you guys know, the potential here is off the charts. I mean, really off the charts. I mean, we're not just talking a disease or two here and there, a few miracles. We're talking, oh my God. Right? Okay. Okay, any other thoughts about digestion here? It's a tricky one, digestion, because there's so many bugs. Right? I mean, there should be a whole study on bacteria in the body and synchronize with the people that are studying that. I mean, what's the frequency and relationship of the frequencies of all the bacteria in the body? Right? What are the musical intervals between all of the healthy gut of all what's the musical interval relationship between each of the bacteria in a healthy gut? People haven't thought of that before. Right? I mean, that would be a really cool study. Any other studies you can think of?
Maybe the relationship of like the frequency of an emotion and its response in the gut.
Oh boy. Oh, that's a big one. Heart math is pretty far along on that.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much they're looking at the gut. Yeah, that's actually just huge, huh? I mean, it's really at least half of, probably 75% of the whole problem,
Yeah.
maybe even more.
Well, I
Wow.
think that's why doctors are intrigued in the EVOX program. That's why I thought it was cool too, is because it
Uh-huh.
has that ability.
Yeah. So I just started going down the road of trying to figure out how to set up a study around that. Okay, it's like, how can we trick people into different emotions? We can like freak them out, right? We can like say, okay, what's your biggest fear? We're gonna bring that in, like, and then like be measuring their gut the whole time, right? Oh my God, we have to pay them a lot of money. Pay them a lot of money. But it's like, but then, okay, then it's like, okay, how are we going to resolve those emotions? Right? I mean, really, we could, I mean, there's so much work. I mean, to really work with the emotions, and there's so much work we've actually already included in here for PTSD and anxiety, grief, depression. I mean, the treatment plans for working with emotions is really one of the most important aspects, right? And most sound healers get people at peace, but don't dive in to the issue, which is going into psychotherapy a bit. And some people say, well, you should leave that to the psychotherapist. Well, we do psychotherapy on each other every day. How are you feeling today? How are you doing? Oh, I've got an idea how to resolve that. Just send them love. Right? Or you could actually send a sound to the part of the body that's holding that emotion. I mean, or focus, where is it in the body? Or there's one technique that one of our students came up with, is take that emotion and shrink it down to the size of a penny with a sound, and then throw it over your shoulder, send it into the earth, send it into source, and replace it with universal love. Right? Or make the sound of the trauma. Got to be careful on that one. Got to be careful. Got to work up to that one. Got to be really careful so that you're actually feeling again. There's so much around this sound and emotions, I mean, although it's so funny, I got to show you this. I've got this student of mine that came to me. She was a student like 7 years ago, and she came to me a couple of months ago and said, I want to do a sound healing treatment on you. I'm like, oh Lord, okay, it's a little scary. Or what do you do? And she said, I just play crystal ball. And she started playing crystal ball, and it was like immediately my entire body and heart was filled with universal love like never before. And angels just descended all around me, and it was like profound. I happen to have her pulled up here. Let me show you. This is her. Check this out. Okay. And so emotional issues just disappeared, right? Here we go. One day, that's going to be in hospitals, right? I mean, the doctors will say, oh, you really need to release this emotion, right? Hard to imagine, right? At least it would be cool if the doctors just synchronized with the integrative therapy departments, right? So, yeah, but it's cool to, after doing something like this, to really then get into reprogramming the emotional and mental bodies, right? Because otherwise you're just going to recreate it again. Okay. Any other thoughts about digestion?
Well, you can see that she was using her hands in your field.
Yeah.
So I was going to bring up the biofield and things like biofield tuning. Basically, like when you have a gut feeling, so it's kind of like the emotional body is this vortex that's actually similarly shaped to the rodent coil.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So right. You have this magnetic field that's actually storing memories of all of your emotions from this life and past, and what you were feeling even when you were in the womb, and what your right. Right. generations before you have felt, and all of the epigenetics and everything is kind of stored in this field, which is kind of mirrored in the physical body. So you can either work on the field or you can work on the body. And yeah, so like in terms of biofield tuning, they would just take a tuning fork and come to the outside of the digestive system. Mm-hmm. And come in. So the edge of the field is like birth, things that happen in birth, and then coming all the way in. And you can actually hear the dissonance. Both the client and the practitioner can hear where there is dissonance in that field around that digestive system.
Eileen McCusick started by taking classes with me at the school, and then but here's the problem.
When was that?
a long time ago, she took classes. She actually came to the school and took some classes. So, but here's the problem. We haven't mapped out the flow of the etheric bodies, or the bodies around, or auras, or any of that. And it's not just a static system where there's a frequency here and frequency there. There's a whole flowing system between. In fact, I was just talking to a psychic about the way energy flows between each of the chakras, between all of the auras, and up and down through the whole system. That's actually way more important than a frequency here or there. I mean, what Eileen's doing is cool because she's, but only using tuning forks. There's so many other things you can use. Voice is way more effective, I feel. And then you can actually not only get the different parts of the body or different spots, humming in a consistent, stable vibration as to chaotic, which is what she's doing more than anything, but also find the actual song and flow. I mean, what's the tempo of the actual flow of the energy through these? It's not just a static system, right? And that's what I would like to see, much less science that actually shows, okay, this distance is actually this issue. And that's really tricky to show, which makes it really hard to get it into hospitals.
Distance is an issue? Distance between intervals? What do you mean?
No, Eileen says different distances are different times in your life as to when issues happen on the
generally,
yeah. What I just said is that it's really to be able to prove that her map is really actually what's going on physically in the body, and it actually affects the body physically like that.
Well, you can feel it when you do it.
Well, that's great,
but I do it,
but
I
hospitals
can do it with selenite, or I can actually just look at someone's aura and know like where they have issues, and then I start asking them about it, and then bring them through an emotional process for them to love and accept and release all of those aspects.
That's great. It's great, and I believe it. It's totally excellent.
Not even having to do with Eileen or any of the tuning fork stuff, but my fundamental knowledge of emotions and dealing with bugs, as you say, all these microorganisms, they only the parasites or whatever, no matter where it is in the body, they are only able to multiply when they have something to tell us. So all of my sessions, I guide people into listening to their body. We can actually tune in to the sensations. Obviously, you know this, but tuning into the sensation and the actual consciousness of the thing, that's the whole reason why people are sick in the first place, is because the body is holding something out of harmony. And you don't necessarily need to conceptualize the intervals, but actually just asking the body what it needs to get back into harmony. And it could be, seeing a specific integrative therapist or...
So here's the deal. I agree with everything you're saying completely. And it's great. Excellent. If we're going to get this into hospitals, there needs to be some grounding as to how we can actually prove these different concepts, right? And that's all I'm saying.
Which is why I'm doing the emotional research, and the magnetic aspects of the body are going to be solid physical. I'm a chemical engineer with a master's in environmental and civil engineering. So I have a strong, research ethic, and I understand the physics and everything. And, there's...
How would you do the study? I mean, we talked about doing the motions here, but how would you do a study to prove that different parts of the aura are affecting different physical parts of the body?
Well, you have some device that scans the aura that can actually see the dissonance. You tell what the states are, and then you transform those dissonances in the aura, and then what is the new state.
Okay, so just whether it's just so so based
And that
on
can be a number of things that
yeah,
change the aura from,
yeah, yeah.
emotional psycho to the
Cool, cool.
actual whatever rodent coils and I don't know,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
other technologies.
I don't know if there's any devices now, and there may be, but there are devices that are accepted for scanning the aura, because actually the aura doesn't even exist in medical science.
Exactly.
Right,
Well, the
right.
biofield has been very well researched
No, that's
by
not true.
Beverly
That's not
Rubin and
the biofield. Oh, I thought you were talking about. Yeah, yeah, but I mean, there's yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
it's
I
subtle,
think
it's like probably, I have a number of books about it. One written by a doctor, I think in the 80s or 90s.
yeah.
But yeah, there's all kinds of research that has been done about the magnetic fields and, what is the.
It's interesting, but they're still not talking about, the actual song that's going through the aura. And that's where I think the research needs to go, because flow through an aura is really, I think, the most important part. And so it's just good. It's an area that's very tricky to navigate, to be able to actually get it into hospitals, but their potential to actually do massive healing is really cool, really cool. Okay,
Hey,
so
I've heard about this acupuncture machine that my teacher once talked about it. I don't know what the name of it is, but he said you could hook this machine up to the acupuncture points in the body and get a readout. It seems like what we need is a readout of the problem, and so that might be another way.
yeah,
I was treated by a naturopath in Portland who actually used that machine, which isn't used very much in the United States, but it's used a lot in Europe by traditional doctors.
Do you know what it's called? I mean,
You
I'm
know,
calling it the acupuncture machine.
right. No, I don't, but I'm very good friends with the doctors, so I can find out easily.
yeah, yeah. There's still, when you look at those machines, it's like, here's the big problem I keep running into is people that make machines like that won't share every little detail about how they figured out what they do. And I bet you there's the Healy, there's the MedBed, there's all these machines that people say, oh my God, right? But you don't know precisely what they're doing because it's proprietary and they don't share it, right? And that's really a problem because
This doctor that I know would, when I used, he cured me. I was poisoned in a workplace,
yeah.
and he cured me. And I used to go in there, and I was treated by him for years, and he would always tell me what's going on. And I know that if you got somebody involved like that, I don't see that he would have any
cool, excellent.
Excellent.
Yeah. Often people don't, but here's also the problem. Often people don't have a wider perspective of the overall framework of how it all works, and they've got parts, and it could be cool. And that's what we're looking is to pull in anybody that wants to really contribute to this. That's great. So, yeah, but the cool thing is here at least we're sharing everything. And
But I don't think you should be so concerned about the fact that some of it's proprietary. You just need a readout, and then you can do the research to correlate it with whatever problem. So, for example, if you have this acupuncture machine, let's say the readout is magnetism. I mean, I don't know what it is, but let's just make it up. So then you can correlate the magnetism at, say, a certain acupuncture point with anxiety, or it might be a harmony issue, like maybe these
yeah,
three
yeah, I hear you, but and that's cool, and we could do some healing, but I just keep going back to my main goal. What's going on and how does it work? If we can figure that out, then we've got the Holy Grail. And so I really, I want to know why it's working. I mean, sometimes people will come up with things that are actually miraculous, right? And I had someone who called me like a couple of years ago, and they said, "Oh, we know how to heal every disease in the body." I says, "How does it work?" And she could not explain it at all. And I was like, "Well, it could be. It's great. It could totally. I totally believe that it could be healing everything in the body. But what's it doing, right? Let's actually have that discussion and really move forward instead of arguing whether something works or not, right? Let's talk about what is it doing and how can we figure out what it's doing, right?
I think that's wonderful, wonderful. But I just want to mention one thing. I worked for the FDA for many years. You don't have to know the mechanism by which a therapy works to get it approved through the FDA. You only need to demonstrate that it works.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. But our main goal here, as I talked about in the beginning in detail, is really to figure out how it all works. Because once you figure that out, now I've seen these books, but once you figure that out, then it's like, and the main number one thing that bugs me is no one is talking about flows. And flow is the whole deal. So when people say, I've got a whole book, they'll write about frequencies and electromagnetics and even like go through all these different things, and they don't talk about musical flows. And it's really the way the body works. I mean, if you don't have good flow through your nervous system, you're going to be shaky. If you don't have good flow through the circulatory system, you could have a heart attack. If you don't have good flow through the digestive system, it's like all types of problems. You don't have good flow through the meridians. It's the whole deal. I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, let's not leave out a major part, right? And that's what bugs me about a lot of the systems. Okay. So, any other thoughts about digestion before we go into blood clots? I am not a baby tosser here. I don't throw any babies out with the bathwater. I'm just focused on, really expanding this dramatically instead of, because there's so many people that are into their technique, right? Or a technique they know about, or a technique they created. And it's like, oh, well, that's cool. How come we're not healing every disease already? How come every disease in the world is not already healed? I mean, how come that device doesn't heal every disease there is, right? It's like, let's go to the extreme and figure it all out.
Well, and especially because frequency is so measurable.
Right.
It's the most specific thing you can possibly get to.
Yeah. It's actually, flow is not too bad because once you get a device where you can measure all the frequencies, all you need is rhythm. Yep. What's the rhythm between those frequencies? Of the and then you got the melody, and that's it.
How many people do you think you would need to study with that specifically in order to come up with a?
Boy, it's interesting because I've been thinking we could get started with 10 million. And then I was talking to Jeffrey Thompson, and he said, well, the devices that would do it to find it are 50 million. So we would now need another 50 million for the facility and the people, which is totally what we have. We can do that. So I'm seeing it totally happening now, right? Where we can totally, we could take, what I'm looking at is like, okay, when someone explains a device or whoever makes it, how much sense does it make to figure out whether we want to actually play with that device and use it to try to figure things out, right? Because that's what I'm going to be looking at, right? And because there's so many devices out there, right? But also, we're just going to have our own devices that actually measure stuff, and then based on this framework of flow, which is not just flow, it's all the parts of the flow too, which are the frequencies, then how does it all work? And then prove, right? Because I'm just starting to see the songs. Let me tell you one thing. My guides a few months ago said, Dave, we need to know the actual melody through each of the 11 systems. And with that, with these devices, we can measure it and actually find that out. So I'm thinking that that would be really cool. And then take that to the aura level, right? Because now we got something grounded. We say, okay, well, how are the auras working with this? Let's actually use a scalar wave to run a flow through the auras, maybe, right? That is in time with the tempo of the person's metabolism, right? And do it in virtual reality so you see something really cool, what's actually going on, right? You're having a blast, right, while being healed, right? So we take it to a whole next level, right, at all levels. So that's what I'm looking at. And then test it and see, does it work?